Okay, so welcome back. Did you have time to have nice conversations, meaningful conversation? Did you get to know new people, to have good coffee? Check everything? Yeah? Okay. So, last but not least on our agenda today, we have a panel discussion with esteemed guests here. And first of all, I would like to introduce and to say a few words about the participants in this panel. Kyle, you already know about him. So I will skip you and I will go to Kristina Mankas. And as I said, I mean, I said several times about Kristina's function. She's VP of HR in Schneider Electric for Southeast Europe. She has a consistent experience in leadership and in HR, more than 15 years. And what I think, I mean, I know Kristina for a long time, so it's a pleasure to have her here, especially because I know she's very busy as everybody else. And a few words, Kristina coordinates from Bucharest all the human resources activity for Schneider Electric Southeast Europe region, which is something that is very, very important, from attracting talents and developing a positive work culture to driving strategic initiatives aligned with the organization's goals. So I think it's very interesting to have Kristina in the panel, because it's not only the perspective about the Romanian market, but also about, I think there are 9 countries in your, or 15, okay, so you can imagine, yeah? You can ask a lot about how others are doing, okay? So thank you so much, Kristina, Kitty, for accepting this invitation. Next, it's a privilege to have with us Corneliu Bodea, CEO of ADREM and President of Romanian Energy Center. He's very busy too, so thank you again for accepting our invitation. A few words about Corneliu's experience. He has a significant experience in the energy industry, managing complex projects and over 1,000 employees, so quite a large number. And Corneliu is very committed to contributing to all initiatives that foster the Romanian entrepreneurial environment. So I think that will be another interesting perspective in our panel. First, because he's not an HR person, he's a CEO. So that's the first difference from the previous speaker that we were telling from Kristina, and because he's coming from an entrepreneurial company. So I think this is really interesting. Corneliu also has some implications in other associations, such as Leaders Foundation, Romanian Business Leaders, and Rethink Romania organizations. He believes it's our responsibility as companies and individuals to engage in activities without exhausting the available resources and affecting the environment, another topic that is really, really on leaders' agenda today, sustainability and how do we take care of environment. So thank you so much for joining this panel. Then next, I like the way the diversity also in our, yeah, I mean that was the purpose, to have a diverse panel, gender diversity, function diversity, industries diversity. So Carmen Micu, again, I know Carmen for a very, very long time, and she's a senior executive with over 25 years of experience in general manager and in marketing and in communication. And she had worked previously on different roles, local, regional, global assignments in companies such as Beiersdorf, Wella, Omnicom Media Group. So different industries from FMCG, pharma, media. And she has also 3 master degrees, and she's an alumna from prestigious schools such as Henley Business School. Since November 2020, Carmen is the chair of the International Association for Sustainability Economy, and she's also a member of Professional Women Network, so I think her perspective can also be on this diversity, women in leadership positions. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining. I'm aware that I cannot cover all the bios, but I promise that we'll share with you the whole bios of the distinguished speakers today. Last but not least is Mircea Țiplea, partner of Amrom Bucharest, one of the most important leadership and executive search companies. He's partner in Amrom since 2016, if I have the right information. Before joining Amrom, Mircea had significant experience, 17 years in management positions, an interesting blend of CFO backgrounds of finance. He was a CFO for Coca-Cola and moved as CFO and CEO in a private equity environment before becoming a leadership consultant at Amrop. So again, another interesting, diverse background. He also works extensively on delivering strategy, change management, and team effectiveness workshops. And the focus of his recent work has been on assisting clients to develop CEO transition strategies from an entrepreneurial environment to a professional organization and in building the right governance to achieve success. Mircea sits on boards of advisors and is lecturing change management at BISM Executive MBA in Bucharest. So again, thank you all of you for being here. Thank you so much. So this is a part where we co-create, right? So I do count on your questions. So first of all, before I start with my questions, I want to ask if you have any burning question that may be raised after you heard the presentations this morning. Anything that would be on top of your mind about post-pandemic leadership, if anything. Yes. I will be moving a lot, so today I check my steps.
Hello, my name is Andreea Manta. I'm representing a consultancy company on executive search. My question to everybody, I would say, because I was looking at the presentation before, and coming from the statistics that Kyle presented on the leaders and the perception of the leaders for the employees, where more than 60% are hated or they don't like to work for them. How did we end up choosing leaders that we don't like? Why is always happening like this? Because it is very nice that we discuss here about what good leader should look like, what should he do. Do we really choose leaders that are showing humbleness, or do we like them? Or when we are put in a position to choose a leader, we will always choose the bold one, choose the one that comes forward, and it's the same thing with politicians. We always choose the ones which are speaking louder, that we perceive that they will fight for us, whether they will never do this, but this is the human nature. So I would think that now probably what we could do is maybe somehow send the message towards these leaders that are anyway in this position to transition from their type of leadership of like bold and many times bullying towards a leader that is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll throw my thoughts, and I'm sure my colleague at Amrop has a lot of information as well on that. But I think the first thing you said that caught my ear was really how we've traditionally rewarded charismatic leadership, which is, for most organizations, an absolute disaster. If we turn the spotlight on my country of origin in the United States, we previously elected a very charismatic leader as our president. And I think everyone knows what the results were while we had Donald J. Trump as the leader of our country, unfortunately, right? So when we have charismatic leadership, you've got an individual who's very good at playing the political game to get ahead within the organization, right? So we're valuing confidence over competence and skills, right? And that's, I think, where those problems come into play, is because if I'm only concerned about myself getting ahead, right, inevitably we will have people in leadership roles that can do that. That's the design of that leveraging of charisma, right? But if we turn our focus onto performance and leading highly productive and highly effective teams as the central measurement of what leadership could look like, I think that's how we change that paradigm. Because we need to start examining that. Are we really rewarding just confidence, great public speaking, great enigmatic ways of sort of connecting with people and get them excited about certain things, but are the results there? Is the performance there? Is the employee engagement and the employee experience, how they're being led, are we measuring that with equal fervor as we are making sure that the right people get put into those leadership positions?
Thank you. Yeah, I think I was about to ask you. Yeah.
And I will complete, Kyle, by saying that today's employees are expecting from leaders things that they were not expecting 20 or 10 or 30 years ago. We expect at work to have a kind of emotional feedback that we sometimes meet in our private life. Things like, feeling appreciated, feeling that everybody cares about you, even feeling loved or belonging there are things that increased with every new generation coming to work. So now, on the other hand, I would say we put a pressure on leaders to be our visionary guidance, our mentors, our healers, especially during the pandemic and stuff, to become something much more than an administrative manager, I would say. So it's a twofold history, I would say.
I would like to add also something coming from a different perspective. When we look at the ultimate level of leadership, which means boards in a company or an NGO, regardless the entity that it's ruling, the owners, founding members or shareholders are always choosing their leader because, and mainly, for trust, which means that everything else is secondary. I'm sharing this information coming from a study done in 44 countries and over 19,000 organizations at board level. So that's the primary criteria. It's not even technical competence, it's trust. It's trust of the owners, of the board of owners, in what the executive should do. So then this is the primary criteria. Everything else coming second means that if he or she is a really good person, has good values, it's really competent, then we don't look at that immediately.
I will add another perspective, and sometimes we are looking to make disruption. There is a organization that until now was very stable and the results were coming but not so great. So you want a little bit more. You want to push the organization to the next level. And I'm not saying that this is always the best way to do it, but to answer your question, this is how, from time to time, the selection of the leader, it's a little bit different from the obvious that probably most of us think about what we should look when we are doing a nomination for a leader.
Yes, I assume I have also to give an answer.
Do.
The idea is that one maybe simple answer to the question is that we make this confusion, and we don't have to do it, between a leadership position and a leader. Having a leadership position, that's not sufficient to be a leader. So it's completely different. Probably that's the simple answer to the question why so many not leaders, people staying in leadership position are not respected and loved by the people they work for and with. By the way, I am accompanied today by two colleagues, and Kyle, you asked the one very nice question: who ever hated their boss? So both of my colleagues were not able to say that. So that's why I go out of the room, you know, giving them the chance.
They were thinking about another boss. Okay, thank you so much. Any other burning questions? Following up on. Okay, that's a table. Okay, so I will. For diversity, I will give to Mona and then to Julia.
Thank you very much. My question would be, because you have seen several organizations, you have the example of US, you have 15 countries, Kitty, then Mr. Voda has the local company, Carmen and Mircea as well, various organizations in various countries. How do you see the differences in leaders between Romania and other countries around us? How did we adapt or not? And how did leadership change or not? Thank you.
I will start with the 15 countries. Okay, not in all 15 countries we have a CEO, if I can say like this. We have 6 different CEOs and a couple of another 6 or 7 VPs. And the decision in this management team that it is at the level of Southeast Europe, it was we don't want to put all the people in one country, all the leaders from one country, even if this would have been easier for all of us, because of course of closeness, but we have 2-3 people in every country, mainly the big ones from Southeast Europe. And it's because we wanted to have a balance, and because we really saw what kind of, I believe, Madalina, you're trying to say. The culture is very different, even if we are in a territory that is relatively small, this part of Europe. The culture is very different, from Romanians to, I would say, Serbians or Hungarians. You bring the joy of Greece at the table. They start the work around 10, 11-ish. And the colleagues from Bulgaria that usually are always very humble and they want to follow. In one of the interviews that I had recently, one of my colleagues that applied for a role at the level of Southeast Europe described, because we are checking this, how you will interact with the people from all these countries, because you know what works in Bulgaria, it's not going to work in Romania or in Hungary or in Serbia. And he described like this. So, Romanians are usually the ones that are the early adopters. You give them something to them and they will take it even if the pile of work is already very high. Bulgarians will follow because they like this and they want to do it. Hungarians will be very stubborn until you will say that Romanians did it, and they cannot resist, so they want to join. Serbs and Croats, they have their own mind, and sometimes you will be surprised because they bring a creativity that you never thought about. And Greeks, yes, they are the latest to join the club, because usually they start around 10, 11, so for them it's difficult to catch the morning session. So it's nice to be in different cultures, and actually this grows us. I used to say that if we are surrounded by people only like us, we will get bored, really bored.
Thank you.
We've been hired in Amro by a bank to give them a perspective of the operating skills in banking across Central and Eastern Europe, at least. And what we found out, and then we've kind of, observed in all the conversation we have, is that we Romanians, we are not the best at planning ahead around the region, but we are the best at firefighting. I mean, when shit hits the fan, we are the first one to find a workaround, to fix it, and eventually to get it done. And look, even in the pandemic, I've got a vaccine 4 months before all my Western European colleagues. So pandemic came, and we jumped in, and we took the injections out, and we start, injecting everybody. Whereas the others were still planning which is the best vaccine, how we'll best implement it and stuff. I've got one in February, and my colleagues in Switzerland and in the Netherlands, they got one in June and July. So that's something about us. Well, this has, you know, there is that say that says, hard work, it's easy work not done on time. Sometimes we do a lot of hard work because, you know, the easy work is for the early adapters, or, you know.
Thank you. So I think we have another question, if you don't have any other.
So speaking about hard work, we were discussing during the break, by the way, I'm Yulia Buciuman from Humanistic, and we were discussing around the break the fact that leaders are very busy. Speaking about what's the profile of the 2024 leader, it's a very busy leader. We work more, and we've seen why, because those hybrid hours that actually tend to go extra hours. Is it something that HR can do in order to make sure that we kind of stop that? This is question number one, and I still have another one, and maybe you can do it in a different way. If there is actually the need in order to rethink in the way that the organizations are actually organizing the work. And what do I mean by that? When we speak about with the leaders in the organizations and we say, listen, the role of the leader is to actually build teams, high-performing teams. And we agree on that, as we've seen in the morning, that this is what his role is. Actually, what they say is, yeah, but I have a very functional team. I'm a leader for the finance team, but the purpose of the team is just to make sure that the finance is done right. But this is not the purpose of the organization. I don't know, I'm part of HR, I'm part of legal, and we've seen this trend of agile teams that actually gather around the scope. What I want to ask is, in order to be a leader that's actually building on high-performing team, do we need to rethink the way that the team is organized? And what are the competencies in the team to help the leader do that? So these are the two.
Okay.
So amazing questions. Thank you for those. I think the first thing you asked about sort of work-life balance from a leadership role. One thing I think that I lacked to explain in the presentation that I gave is those same principles of employee well-being, occupational well-being, engagement, those apply to the leader as well, right? And so that function of HR as it looks towards leadership has to consider that as a part of how they comprehensively view those concepts within all levels of the organization. So I would say that work-life balance, employee well-being, occupational well-being, engagement applied just to a CEO the same day that they would an entry-level hire that just came out of university. So I think that's a really important consideration, that we do have to evaluate things like that for leadership as well, because when you're talking about extensive work hour schedules, all the factors that we've been talking about from an external standpoint that the company has to manage internally, that consideration has to be at the forefront of all HR strategies throughout all levels of the organization. So I know that's a high-level answer, but I don't want to dominate the whole panel. And then as far as your second question, well, does anyone else have any other thoughts on the first one? I don't want to get too...
I can also step in with the first question, because, you know, I will never know probably whether I am a leader or not, but definitely I am in a leadership position. And, you know, there is another idea and a way of looking at the personality of a leader. And there are some, there is a lot of discussion about resilience quotient. So it's a kind of intelligence of being resilient. So I think this is critical for someone in a leadership position, because the idea that the HR director will, you know, somehow step in and make something that the leadership will change his way of, you know, doing things, it's maybe a bit revolutionary. And I don't want to give too much, you know, how to say, room to the HR to step into how the leaders, you know, arrange their programs. But definitely, I believe that there will be no time when leaders will, have a lot of free time. They will always be busy. So the idea is that the way how intelligent they are in building a resilience, how they can manage this continuous pressure, which will always be the time.
Any other thoughts on that, on the first question?
Too many leaders are too young in the job, and it takes time to be wise. I remember a story with Lyndon Johnson, the US president, the one that came after Kennedy was killed. And he had a handover session with the next president. And he told him, look, Mr. President, every morning you will see 10 big troubles coming towards you. Rest assured that by the time they reach you, 8 of them will fall into the ditch, and you will have to deal only with 2. If, God forbid, you will start dealing with all 10 of them, you will be screwed. And I say, today, the bullet can come from 10 times more directions than even 10 years before in business. If you see only bullets, and you want to deal with all of them because you are too busy to build the trust, the empowerment, and all the other stuff, then of course you are always too busy because you are engaged and because you want to succeed and because you feel like the responsibility to protect the organization from all the bullets that fly around. It takes time for you to become wise and to deal only with 2 of them so that people will not see you running like a headless chicken.
That's an interesting perspective because we have a lot of companies that are pushing here the shared services and support services with very young leaders. So that would be a food for thought for those organizations. How can they put a little bit a different pace or teach leaders how to organize, how to reprioritize? Carmen, any thought about this first question from Julia?
Sometimes when I'm looking at the answers, I know I'm not an HR specialist, so my view it's more coming from what Corneli is also looking. Resilience, handling complexity, it's a tough job for a leader. That's exactly also what Mircea was saying. You have to do that every day. And depending on the organization, every manager, every leader has a very limited, managing span. You can talk directly, you can, be incredible genius and handle 20 high senior guys, but in effect you cannot work with more than 5 or 6. So then how you cascade that down in the organization in such a way that people are feeling comfortable, that they don't feel the pressure you are feeling, they don't see all the bullets coming and going. This is your art as a leader. And second, this is the art of the leaders that you are leading. So it's a cascade. Everybody then should be there becoming a person that is handling very well, that has resilience, that is handling very well complexity. And last but not least, I would say that, again, seconding you need wisdom. This wisdom is coming with time, and it's coming with experience. You need to be exposed to such situations. And only then you can develop a way of being. And also I would add something more. This is my personal experience. You go through life, you go through specific situations, and only when you understand your limits, then you can handle the other one's limits. You can see them, you can expect, you will know what to expect, so to say. And then you can make easier for everybody else in the team and in the team of the teams in such a way that you don't feel the pressure and you can manage better conflicts and whatever crisis.
So I think we had a second part of the question. If you have any insights, now we are testing the good memory of the panel. I think Kitty, it's on you.
Good memory of the panel, it's not working today. I will refer on the other hand on the first one, because the memory, I said, I was captured by what my colleagues have shared. How HR can put a stop on too many hours or too long hours? I don't think so. I have the question. I'm still struggling to find it, even for myself and for my team. But one of my leaders usually from time to time comes to me and say, Kitty, you need to take a break. You know, you are running too fast for too long as a time. We are not in a marathon here. We should be in some sprints, and then we stop a little bit, and then we start maybe a little bit longer, and then again we stop. Try to advise your leaders that the day life, the business as usual, it's not something like a marathon, because otherwise we will reach out, all of us, at burnout and quitting at the end of the day. Enough is enough.
Thank you.
Bună ziua, Mihaela Plocon. Sunt în recrutare de ceva timp și pentru că tot vorbim despre... sorry, I need to switch in English. Sorry for this. Okay, sorry. So I'm working in recruitment for more than 10 years, let's say, various companies, and I know that we are speaking about great leaders, but I want to bring to you the opposite side, because I faced with some situations when the manager has a better reputation and the people are quitting, what you said about it. But also you can't attract people in that organization, in that company, in that team. So how do we deal, and how does the employers deal with this kind of leaders, in leaders' positions, not leaders? And how should employees deal with bad boss? Thank you.
You need to take a decision, and fast, if the person in a leadership position is just a person.
Any other thoughts on this very intriguing question?
I agree. I think you know, any time you know, I used an analogy in my speech about, you know, if you need to go to the doctor, you need a diagnostic, and then you need a prescription to solve the problem. I think bad leadership is the same thing. I mean, if you let bad leadership fester too long in an organization, performance is going to suffer at a rate that can take years to solve and fix, even when good leadership gets put in place. I think it's an endemic issue when that happens inside organizations, when it happens in countries from a political standpoint. One bad leader can change the course of an entire generation of a country, from an economic standpoint, from a social standpoint, the list goes on and on. So I think, you know, the advice to an organization when they're in that position, couldn't agree more, it has to be a quick, resounding decisions, and then they really need to evaluate what next steps need to look like to course correct and try to you know, get the right people in the right positions to change the trajectory of the performance of the business.
I would add something very straightforward. Audit performance, fire and hire.
Quite a straightforward and bold answer. Okay. Good. Oh my God, I have my questions too, no?
Hello, I'm Raluca Gâdiuța from HP. We've heard a lot recently about the need to be more emotional intelligence. The new generation say that they expect a lot more emotional intelligence. I heard an interesting concept recently, the concept of unbossing that a company wanted to implement, in which to kind of be more aware of the influence of the leadership in terms of people's behaviors when the leader enters the room, and I'm sure that you have a picture when I'm saying that. My question would be, considering what we've seen earlier, that still boldness is high, still we're talking about leaders that are charismatic, first of all, rather than, you know, emotional leaders or very supportive and nurturing with the teams. How do we bridge that gap, or not necessarily bridge, but actually accelerate things? And if you see the role of HR in that, what would be it?
Raluca, your name, right? So I'll tell you a story, and please excuse my English from the beginning. From the first time I've met Dr. Hogan, Kyle, you will love it. He came in Bucharest 6 years ago or something like this, 7 years ago maybe.
2019. So
Oh boy.
Just before,
Yeah.
in the end of the year.
And I've asked him exactly this. The mantra of the bold leadership was, if you take them by their balls, their minds and hearts will follow. And that was Jack Welch, World War. And then I've asked Dr. Hogan, what should be the new law, so to speak? And he stopped and said, well, probably heart. So if you take them by their heart, their mind, and, well, energy, will follow. Now, I will contextualize a bit, because we are in this part of the world where you see all these type of leaderships. Ones that will grab you by your energy, the others that will grab you by your heart, and the others that will appeal first to your mind, and then to the other, because you need all three of them in life. And in any organization in order to succeed. But I've been through many contexts in my career. Coca-Cola, water, sugar, boom, 90% profit. Then Expedition, 1,500 drivers working a hell of a lot and profit minus 20%. And then I would say the context is this. If the company is at war, is struggling, it's okay for some time to have that bold leadership, because it might be the only one that will make you survive as an organization. Now, most of the organizations are not at war, and maybe they are like, you know, the 80% profit ones. There, I would say, it's the best for the whole world and for the society to first appeal to the heart and to the mind of people in order to trigger their motivation and energy. Sorry for the long answer.
That's great. The other thing I would add to that, so the CEO of Novartis is a giant pharmaceutical company. He has been very public about this idea of unbossing that entire organization. So it's a global multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical firm. He does a series on their website where he sits down and talks with his coach about his own leadership development and this concept of unbossing. I don't want to take anything of the quality away from that. So that, from a reference point of view, if you wanted to do more research on how that actually is kind of playing out at a large scale within a multinational company, I would highly recommend going to look at that as maybe perhaps some inspiration, because I think it does highlight a couple of things. It's this concept of being more relatable from an emotional intelligence standpoint throughout all levels of the organization. It also shows that he recognizes the value in coaching for the leader to improve their skills and abilities to relate to their own workforce, and obviously being very public about how that's evolving within them. So I think it literally is called the Unbossed series on Novartis's website, and I think there's a lot of value in that, just for reference on your question.
I would also like to add something, that it is obvious that in order to inspire people, you need to take them from many places. And it is, what I believe is that, you know, people, in order to follow you, they might be very adaptive. I believe that people, they can also follow bold bosses or leaders, or, you know, leaders that are, you know, humble, and they can do both. The same people, the same group of people. What I think is very critical here is authenticity. If you are an authentic leader, people will buy you. They will understand maybe that you might be a bit more like bold or courageous, or, you know, or humble. And they can, but if you are not authentic, and I think this is the difference where people might not like bold leaders, because many of these bold leaders might be not authentic. They might not be real bold people. They might look like bold people. And authenticity for leadership, I think, is key.
That's interesting. When narcissistic tendency, the bold part, is covering insecurities, then you could not be very authentic. Thank you. Carmen.
One quick add. Thank you, Corneliu. Second, everything that my previous colleagues said, and add, please, integrity. If you don't have integrity, if you are bold, if you are humble, you need definitely to have integrity. Walking your talk in front of your colleagues, it's, in my experience, very, very important.
I think we had a question from Elena from Steelcase.
Hello, I'm Elena Ardelan from Steelcase, and I'm wondering about a post-pandemic topic which is very complex, the return to office. And according to some global studies, the leaders are the most present in the office. And if you can help us with some recommendation, what should a great leader do in order to address this topic in their organizations? Thank you.
Be transparent and walk the talk. If we are asking people to come to the office, we should be there as well. I would say this is the first one. Second, we need unprecedented times. I think all the times were unprecedented. We just believe that ours right now it's more than the ones that were in the past. I believe that we need to adapt, but this was done also in the past. You are not leading the same way the entire team. You're adapting to the person that was in front of you. You might have had somebody junior and somebody more senior, somebody that needs more coaching and guidance, somebody that needs freedom, let them fly. In terms of coming back to the office or work from home, here you also need to adapt. In my organization here in Romania, I'm talking only, half of the organization is not working for Romania. So what I should do? Should I ask them to come to the office just to tick a box? Or should I try to identify those areas where I can bring also the people that are not working from Romania to the office? I don't know, like events or gatherings or meetings or small things that will make the difference, and it will create the desire to, okay, I want to go there, I want to see what's happening. I'm not for a forceful idea on coming to work, it's mandatory, you need to be here. On the other hand, I also announced in the organization that 2 days per week people should be. And I will say that probably, at least for the ones that are working strictly for Romania, more than 80% of the people are in the office. But we are a sales organization, so you know, to see them more in the office is not good for the business.
And can I add something? I became very preoccupied, Elena, during the pandemic on a concept named tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is something you learn sitting by. You don't learn from the books, from YouTube, but sitting by. Sitting next to someone more senior, smarter maybe, or smarter in a different way than you are. And I would say the challenge here is, apart from the admin side, how many days you are in the office, how you can orchestrate and nurture the something that goes beyond human capital, which is called social capital. The fact that we think together, not as individuals, and how you can orchestrate for tacit knowledge, because without this, that organization will become, you know, will get a kind of Alzheimer and will repeat the same mistakes because tacit knowledge is missing. How you can orchestrate for it as a leader and as HR, I would say is both the heart and the soft of it. I'm, for instance, cooking Fridays in the office, and they come.
We've seen that on Facebook.
May I add something quickly? I like very much the idea of changing the business model of the business model. So living through the pandemics, I think we are now undergoing a process of reconstructing or deconstructing our paradigm regarding how we work into a new, completely new structure. If you know or if you read the book No Rules Rules, Erin Myers, where there are several business cases, but one is really very interesting, how the Blockbuster failed, how Netflix thrived. I think it's important to look at what are we looking in for the long run. What is important? We have objectives, business objectives. In the end of the day, the company exists for making profit, whatever we call it. I like very much the idea of Peter Drucker that said, no, the company that has no social purpose or doesn't do social good is not going to thrive for long. It's not going to resist actually for long, which we already see that. So coupling that together with the pandemics, I think the new paradigm that it's obvious emerging is that we need to focus our energy and our way of working on how and what delivers the results. If it helps me being just one day in the office, it's perfect. If it doesn't help, you shouldn't be there. You should be doing your work wherever you are more performant. In the end of the day, results are the ones who are counting. And you do better, you deliver better and faster, and when you are also happy. So if you are happier at home, it's equal, as long as the project is successful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's very well said. And I think to only add a little bit on there, I think organizations have to get creative. I mean, if the incentive is there for the performance of the company to have people in office, I think you need to find a way to get creative and get people engaged as that being a value proposition for their work experience. Creative companies that require collaboration amongst employees, that you need to find a solution for that, obviously, with people working in more remotes. And again, I talked a lot about employee engagement, employee experience. Is expecting people to be in 3 hours of traffic every day a part of the work experience that your company wants them to have? Because that's the consideration the employee is having. So I think it's getting creative about holistically thinking about what that value proposition is. So for example, if they do come in 2 days a week, if that's the requisite thing, what's that experience looking like now that they're there in the office? Are we making that engagement worth their time, where they figure out they're getting more from their work experience, they're getting more value from doing that? Are they a happier, more productive workforce? And I think it relates to the second part of the earlier question the young lady had back there about when you have more task-oriented teams as well, how are we managing that from sort of a workplace satisfaction expectation standpoint? And I think the answer is really the same, is are we, as HR professionals, sort of analyzing the employee experience within their particular job role, and are we continually trying to create value proposition for them that keeps them engaged with the work that they're doing?
I would like to add something to what Kyle said. There are two benefits, extra benefits, when you work in such a way. One is you empower more people. Empowering people brings more sense of contribution, of having a purpose, of really being there, that you feel more important. And second, you respect their time. And that, I think the two aspects, empowering and respect, are very important now in our, unprecedented times.
Any perspective from a CEO how it is to run an organization? I know that the particular setting of Adrem is that you have people on the field and then people in the office. So how did you accommodate?
Yes, actually, I was coming, to many conferences discussing about, this, work from home, hybrid type of works. I will bring here also obviously an, energetic or, sustainability point of view, that I personally believe that working flexible hybrid, it is a very good thing. Obviously, like anything, you have advantages and disadvantages. But just try to understand how huge the impact is going to be on the, reduction of the CO2 emissions. You don't go every day, for 3 hours in a traffic with a car, or I don't know, even with a bus or something. You open a different, building with crazy systems to maintain the temperature and things like that. So I believe, yes, this is the wise way to, to build our future relationship with our employees. There is a huge challenge, and we as leaders, we have to take it, because the challenge is how to empower people, how to maintain the culture. What is happening if your employee is going to work for 3 companies in the same time? I don't speak here about competition, or incorrect thing, but working for 3 companies in the same time, because they manage their time better. This is going to bring a huge advantage in the economy, huge advantage. Of course, you have to tackle the, people get more tired, you have other problems. But this is a challenge for the leaders. How to, and this is a very good, just ask yourself the question, if you are not able to evaluate the efficiency of the work of your employees while the employee is not in the office, how are you doing it when he works in the office? So that's your job, HR, leaders. If you are not able to bring and maintain the vision, the culture within your employees, do you believe that coming to the office, this is solving this? No. So definitely we have to, we are challenged and we have to find good answers. Doesn't matter if they work from the office or outside of the office.
I think it's very nicely said, and it links back to the trust issue. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Andrei Stupo. I assume I'm the youngest here, so my question is related to that. I'm a researcher on wisdom, actually. So what I wanted to ask you is that relating to the generational workforce, multi-generational workforce, and I saw two of you emphasizing on the idea that wisdom comes with experience. Actually, wisdom comes with reflecting on experience. And the actual research says that there's no correlation for people between 25 years of age and 75 in terms of correlation with wisdom. So there is the capacity of learning out of experience. There are people that have a certain age without reflecting on experience, and they do not get wiser. What is important for me is knowing how do you approach multi-generational workforce, and how do you face this young generation boldness, as I assume I showed off a little bit now. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrei, for your bold question.
When I mentioned witness, Andrei, I was referring to an old Oriental say which says, in the mind of the beginners, there are many options. In the mind of the experienced, there are fewer. So it's not about, being wise as a guru, but being wise in taking decisions. And what you said is true, because wisdom, I guess, is still correlated with cognitive abilities, with IQ, which doesn't grow much when you are 45. And then with the experience. So it's IQ first and experience and the ability to reflect on experience as well. But I love a book that was written a few weeks ago called The Perennials, which brings the perspective of a new way of looking at your whole life. The old way is, you go to school, you find a job, you marry, you do stuff, you marry again, you do stuff. And then the perennials, which they don't fill in these cycles anymore, but rather the way you discover the world step by step, you discover possibilities and opportunities. And you can, if you don't have many careers in your life or many professions, and starting it again and again. I'm exactly at the middle of it. I had 25 years of work, and I still have 25 years ahead of me. Would I now, with all that I have now, start a new career or a new job or a new profession or doing something else? Or I will continue doing what I've done so far? Well, I already started a few years ago. I'm not an accountant anymore, but that was my, my connection with wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think you bring up a good point. Based on multi-generational workers and leaders and all these sorts of things. I think leaders look like leaders whether they're 25, 65, male, female, sexual orientation, ethnicity, all that stuff. I think you see similar threads on a light side, dark side, psychometric measurement of what leadership looks like, right? What I think is more interesting is efficacy, how effective someone is. So Elon Musk, hyper effective at running a technology-based company. I think most people in this room might agree with my sentiment that when he bought Twitter, probably not great at running a social media platform where he has unlimited access to say whatever he wants, right? So there's consequence there and efficacy based on, to your point, wisdom in certain verticals of experience, right? So, you know, we can say, is he a more effective leader in the technology space at his age, given time? Sure. Not very effective in a different vertical because he doesn't have that efficacy in that space, right? So I think we put too much emphasis on demographic measurement, age, gender, all these sorts of things, and we can talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'm sure, at length in this room, but I think really that the most important thing is efficacy, right? What are we measuring from a performance standpoint that indicates an individual, regardless of demographics, is a high-performing leader? I think that's really the most important quotient from an organizational standpoint that we need to be measuring, and I agree with you. I think wisdom can, I made a lot of mistakes in my 20s that I've certainly learned from over the last 20 years, right, that I've put into practice. You know, but would I say that my efficiency as a leader was better then or now? I'd certainly say it's now, right? So that's where I put a little more value on. But there's young tech entrepreneurs at 24, 25 that I would absolutely say are much more efficient from a leadership standpoint than I am at 45. So I think that's the real value proposition for me.
So when having your age, I agreed with your opinion. Now I agree with his opinion.
So, but I think the question still is very, very important, and it was on my list, so thank you. How do you handle this very unusual workforce with all these generations? It's not easy to accommodate. It's not easy to have a dialogue. So, Carmen.
Again, I'm not the HR specialist. I'm talking from my experience. I think performance is performance. It doesn't take age. Honestly, if you are good, you're good. If you have a specific discipline in your work, meaning you are, I don't know, it depends what you do, but you are responsible, you look at the details, you follow through, if you start, you finish, you cooperate, you ask questions when you don't know, whatever, you know, etc. This has nothing to do with age. This is something to do with your 7 years from home, really. It has to do with how you were brought, with your values, you know, Hogan, the MVPI. Who you are, and which is never going to change. So if you are a person who is attentive to details, for example, not perfectionist, yeah, attentive to and follows through, you are going to be at 5 years, at 10, and then 50, the same. So this is who you are, how you do things. I think for me now, wisdom, and I do not want to go back because it's about how you handle teams. So if you are performing your performance, if you look at the other things, the soft dynamics in a team, then you need to take care of the age. Because with age comes different needs, actually. So when you work with people, you have to be careful if somebody is on the verge to have a child and will have different needs or different time allocation for your team or to be contributive and productive in a team. I just pick up, you know, the nicest thing, you have a kid. So. Whatever it happens, the dynamic has to do with age, with you as a leader to be careful in reading the context in such a way that you know whom you should talk to when things are critical and whom you should not talk to, because you know that person will not have the capacity, not because he or she doesn't have it, but at that moment in time will not have the capacity to listen to you too much. And so on. So I can give, you know, thousands of examples, but bottom line is reading complexity, take care of the age when you do that in the team in such a way that you ensure you have results.
Thank you. So we heard you are not the HR director, but Christina Aso, please.
You need a lot of creativity to deal with different age groups. But it's also a lot of fun. Come on, I said, if everybody in my team will be my age, we will discuss only about, I don't know, what age is your kid and when he will finish the school. Now, I have a 21-year-old and a 24-year-old in my team here in Romania. And yes, it's totally different from the other colleagues that are more senior as age, in their 40s, because the needs of these young people are different from the needs of the more senior people. And you need to adapt. You need to wear a different hat depending on who you have in front of you. And you said something, Andrei, very important, that part with self-reflection. And this is indeed, it's not something only that somebody 23 years on one leg has it, but it's something that also a young person can have it. If you are able to give the right feedback and to transmit the message in the way that the person will listen. It's not only about us that we listen, it's also how the people are transmitting the message. And I believe here the leader has the biggest challenge, to learn how to do this.
Okay, so we are taking this one more question, then I will have my question, and then we go for lunch.
Thank you, Madalina. Hi, so I'm in a leadership position locally here. I don't know if I'm a leader, I know that I'm in a leadership position. I have around 20-something employees, from 22 to 50 something, like this. I'm 40, so I'm exactly in the middle. But I want to go to a very practical question, which is related to evaluations. I am part of a very big group worldwide with 90,000 employees worldwide. So when it comes to evaluations, in our group, they are done at every 3 months. For top management, they are OKRs. For middle management, they are catch-ups or other types. Everybody in my team, they see this type of evaluation as just a tick. Oh my God, it's again, they come 3 months and we need to do it again. How can we improve this? How can we make it meaningful? How can we make it in such a way that people will really do evaluations and self-evaluation, going to self-reflection also, in a way that our also top management will understand what is really happening in the local teams. Thank you.
I'll give a quick answer because I'm sure everyone else has a little more detail. But I mean, not having a ton of context on how you guys perform the evaluations, this will be somewhat anecdotal. But I think the critical thing on that is really having a development plan tied to the evaluation. Because if all we're doing is a temperature check, you're exactly right. I think it just ticks a box. They're not enthusiastic about the process because it sort of leads to nowhere, right? It's just kind of, I get in, you tell me I did a good job on this, you tell me I did a good job on that, see you again in 3 months. Okay, right? So I think you really need to pivot towards looking at that as an opportunity for a development piece to be added onto that component, because then there's a measurement tied to it, right? And then there's sort of this idea of obligation from a performance standpoint that not only am I hearing about my performance, but now I'm being measured against it with a finite timeline, right? So there's some deliverables from a performance standpoint that the employee is responsible for, and then the company also has to create metrics by which that measurement is done fairly, equitably, and within a way that they can understand and subscribe to actually being done. So I think any sort of diagnostic like that without performance incentives tied to it is really just a recipe for, like you said, kind of circling the drain. Eventually there's no enthusiasm about the process, even from you delivering it, because your participation in it matters as well, right? From a leadership standpoint. If you're excited about where your team of 20 plus people is going across all those age spectrums, because not only are you giving them feedback, but you're getting feedback from how their performance is doing based on that interaction, that evaluation. I think that's critical from both sides of the aisle, so to speak, because you're accountable, they're accountable, and now you have a real measurement on organizational improvement at an individual level.
I would ask, what is the purpose of this evaluation? Is it performance clear, sales, whatever, so KPIs? Or is it, overall performance if you achieved your objectives in the yearly evaluation? Is the second or the first? The second. Then every quarter it doesn't produce anything, obviously. So what you should do now, again, I'm going back to long time ago when I was a corporate person, These evaluations are done normally yearly. If you do them too often without having, a follow-through regarding sales, I just take sales, it doesn't make any sense, and people are only frustrated. Second, nobody loves, or first, nobody loves evaluation because it puts you sometimes in front of your failures. So if you constantly monitor me every quarter that I'm not filling in whatever reason, and I know that the year end is going to be good, again referring to sales, it brings a long frustration, a constant pressure that delivers anything, that doesn't deliver anything. So I think you should split business growth or whatever compared to overall objectives in the end that should be achieved. And this should be done once per year. The other things should be done monthly. So business performance every month or whatever you measure, it depends on the department, but everything else it's yearly, or should be yearly.
As a leader, it really comes to one question that I'm asking, for instance, during interviews. Are you able to provide negative feedback and motivate at the same time? Because if you can do this, then most probably you will know what to take out of these evaluations. Because in the end, any improvement comes in few stages, if you want. Awareness, and that's easy. Everybody can deliver a negative feedback and create awareness. But then it's acceptance. Do you spend time in creating the acceptance? And third is understanding the impact. Do we agree that by not doing this, the impact in the organization is this? And only after it comes the motivation to change. Going through this is fundamental for any talent management development and any improvement, but for a leader, being able to use it and to inspire at the same time, it's indeed a superpower.
I would also like to add something from my experience. So it obviously limited, but 12 years maybe ago, our company took over about 600 employees from one of our customers in an outsourcing process. So the idea was that you take these people and you have to do the same work with less money and also some limitation in firing people. So we had to take over all personnel. And so how to do that, from one day to the other? The company that outsourced was not a state-owned, but like a mentality state-owned type of company. So at that time, the only idea I had was to implement management based on objective, a KPI system, and bonus system. I must say it worked very good. So we managed to outperform even our expectation about how people will react to this and how more efficient. Okay, it looked like our customer that outsourced was not very happy because it looked like he had a lot of room there to better perform. But then over years, this turned into, showed its limits. So I believe in this management based on objective and KPI system and bonus system, you have to first look at two main things. One is how people feels about that these KPIs are related to what they actually do. So never put a KPI which the people will feel it like, okay, but I can't do anything about doing this better. And second, obviously you have to have a very stratified type of objective. It's something to an objective to our my electrician in the field, and something else to my HR director. These two factors are very important. The third one, it's that there are a lot of discussion about that this type of management or objective-based management, it's limited. But I don't believe so. I believe that the difference is the engagement. So not the way you manage the objective is important, but actually it's important how engaged your people are. And this is a leadership, maybe main responsibility.
Anybody else would like to ask, to add something to that?
Just add one sentence. In any conversations like this, things are where they should be if everybody feels that feedback is a gift.
Yeah. So we are now coming to conclusions because I think we are past 1 o'clock, so yeah. And I have the chance to ask my question. My question will be, is anything that you would have liked me to ask you and wasn't asked by me or by the audience? Anything, and being more serious, because the title of this conference is Post-Pandemic Leadership, and because we touch interesting subjects, and because we talked about the wisdom and about reflection, how these years would sum up for you? What is something that you take out of these years as a lesson, as an aha, that you will use for yourself and for your organizations?
Everything can be learned and unlearned. And if you have this courage to wipe it out and say, okay, I will take it from zero one more time, then everything is possible.
And if you were to link this with a characteristic of a leader, how would you put this in words?
We talked about characteristic like authenticity. We talked about being humble. I will add the vulnerability piece on the table. To be able to say, okay, I don't know all the answers. I did a huge mistake, or I did a mistake, or how I can solve this, because I don't know, literally, I don't know. When the pandemic started, I was like, okay, and now what we are doing? How is with the Teams or Skype or Zoom? And why people are not connecting with the camera, why we are doing like this, or why we are doing the other way around. We didn't have the answers. We just learn along the way, all together. We had the passion to learn. This is something that maybe the leader needs to have as well, apart the vulnerability. This passion to learn and unlearn. And to recognize, okay, I don't know. Right now, I really don't know.
Thank you.
I believe we are living, from the leadership point of view, wonderful times. Wonderful, really wonderful times. All this VUCA environment brings tremendous chances for leadership to thrive, to learn. And I even would dare to say that this might be the actual progress of the humanity now. The fact that, and probably that's why all this environment is VUCA, because we became better in managing challenges, and we have more potential in doing that. Also, due to technology, AI is going to come over us, and this is going to bring more uncertainty, and leaders will become much better.
Thank you. So the wisdom of the pandemic.
For us, the pandemics brought, I think, one big characteristic, which is called managing all your fears and try to reconcile them, which for a leader means that you have to be resilient, you have to be compassionate, because you are surrounded by people that are trying to handle their fears and the uncertainty. I think you should surround yourself as a leader with trusted advisors, or more to say, trustworthy advisors, because you don't know it all, and in your humbleness you should accept help, and you should ask for help. And last but not least, keep your independent way of thinking, having a critical thinking, but also independent. You receive advice, you receive stimuli, your people are talking to you, your shareholders are talking to you, your board colleagues are talking to you, so you have to keep your independence of thought. And how you can do that, and I'm talking only by myself and some of my colleagues that I'm surrounded now, I'm really, Mircea and Corneliu are my colleagues. Going back to school. And I know it sounds, you know, for a senior person is like, what are you talking to me? Yes, going back to school, have again that humbleness, that acceptance that you don't know, and keep yourself informed. Educate yourself, put additional knowledge, new wisdom, reflect on your experiences together with your peers, with your like-minded persons, and then you will grow. And as long as you grow, you can face again new challenges, and you will be successful.
I think my favorite part of the pandemic was being at home with my family, because up until that point, yeah, well, that's an offline conversation, but you know, at that point, I think I had accumulated something like 1 million frequent flyer miles in my career, and I was gone all the time. And to get for a 1.5 year period, to see my kids actively living their lives and participating and welcoming a new baby, you know, both as a participant and then watching my wife grow the baby was what it made me realize is that I really value people, right? And I had gotten so deep into the work for such a long time that I had forgotten that what makes the work go is people. Why I work is people. The way I work is people. And so I remember very vividly, again, I mentioned earlier, I love playing football. I still play in an old guys league back home. And when we got cleared to play again, the first time I received a pass from a teammate, I almost had a tear in my eye because I missed that connection with people, the common pursuit of doing something that we really, really enjoy, right? And I enjoy my work because I get to work with people. And I enjoy being a father and a husband because I get to work with people. And I enjoy sport and activities because I get to work with people. So my message post-pandemic is that I think a great leader right now recognizes, as we're all sort of alluding to here, the value in people, right? And if we focus on making employee experience valuable and making employee engagement valuable and occupational well-being valuable, both for yourselves as leaders and for the people that you're working alongside and the people that you're working with, if that's the only thing we learn from the pandemic is how important people are, then we, in my opinion, have learned the exact proper lesson that 3-year period was intended to teach us.
I have a threefold type of conclusion. First has to do with a concept we've developed in MROP called Leaders for What's Next. Good leaders, they meet targets. And that's bloody important, especially for Romania. And especially for the entrepreneurial businesses. Most of you work for multinationals. But we desperately need successful, wealthy, rich entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial businesses. We need at least 1,000 more Cornelius, and you name it, in this country, because without wealth and economic security, we don't have geopolitical security. So good leaders meet targets. Great leaders, they meet targets and they develop great teams. They understand that this co-creation that you've mentioned a few times today goes hand in hand with co-elevation. As long as we work together, we help each other grow and elevate together, and nobody in the team is left behind. And exceptional leaders, they leave a legacy. People talk about them long after they are not in the office anymore. Then the second message is for the HR community, because in the end, HR needs to answer to one question, one only. Do we have the talent and the capabilities to win? And if you will think at this question, you will understand that you have a lot of work to do to really get the answer to this question. Do we have the talent and the capabilities to win? Every word is important here. what means winning, what means talent, what means capabilities. All these are, you know, it takes you years to really understand and have an impact. And the third message is to the humans in the room. And it's very much connected with what we are doing together, Madalina, in trying to use both science and wisdom and personal connection and interactions to assess leadership potential and leadership effectiveness. And that's from Jung, which says, know all the science, master all the techniques, but when you touch a human soul, do it as a human soul.
Thank you all so much. I think there is nothing to add. It was, from my perspective, really an exceptional panel discussions. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for my co-MCs in the room. And if you, again, a big thank you to all of you, because I know it's Friday, I know it's a busy season, so it means a lot to have you here. Our journey, 18 years, would have not been possible without you. So thank you very much, because I learned a lot from each of you. And I think now it's a moment for our hedonism to flourish. But again, thank you all, and we wait outside for a nice lunch. Thank you.